Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Real Estate Investors Roundtable. This is Lowell Lane with Higher Vision Coaching, Training, and Consulting, and I'm very excited about today. Just going to give a background of how this all came about. I met these great kids from the NEWcaps program in Neosho, and we just got talking to several of them, and a couple of them, I think three of them, said they were interested in real estate investing as a future career. And I thought, well, I know some real estate investors, so let's see if we can get them together and they can tell their stories, and maybe we'll get some insight on guiding and directing them in their future endeavors. So I just kind of give you a roundup here of what we're doing. So like I said, we're just going to kind of start by letting the speakers introduce themselves, tell their story. You guys can kind of take notes, and that way you can kind of build some questions based on what they tell you. And then once we get done with that, then Chris will have the students just introduce their name, where they're from, and what their future aspirations will be, and then we'll open it up for question and answer. And so that's where hopefully the magic will happen. So if you don't mind, Chris Forsythe, we'll put you up first and let you kind of tell your story and what you're doing, and then we'll go on to James Light. So
okay, well, hey, thanks, Lowell, for putting this on. I know it's always fun to come share with students, so we're glad to be here today. For me, and you'll probably hear this with a lot of different real estate investors, sometimes it starts out a little differently for all of us. And so for me, it was I had a corporate job at the 3M company. So I had a corporate W-2 for 17 years. And so with that came some safety and security. I knew I always had a paycheck, and so things can kind of get easy in that aspect because you're counting on a monthly paycheck and all those things. And in 2016, one of my friends got me into insurance and said, you ought to start looking at insurance in the industry. I know you're a little unhappy where you're at. So I did. And a year into that, an agency come up for sale in Pittsburgh, Kansas. And so I was like, man, for me, that was really scary at the time. 2 kids, single dad, but I'm like, I'm going to take the leap. So I was able to, I actually put in my 2 weeks at my job. I didn't have a loan secure for that new insurance agency that I was buying, and I had a contract on. So I learned really quick at that point. I really had to hustle. I got in contact with an old banking friend and was able to secure that loan on that new agency. And so for me, going into 2017, it was really just I had to hit it really hard and try to figure it out. So I come from a manufacturing experience leading crews and such, and then pivoting into insurance was a new world for me. So fast forward to today, I've been able to acquire another agency. We got several different small businesses that we run. Joplin Area Real Estate Investors Association is one of those. We have a lot of fun with the investors there. And really, in the last 2 to 3 years, I've been really looking at real estate and starting to acquire more real estate as those opportunities arise. So, Lowell, I don't know how much time we want to spend on introductions, but that's a really 10,000-foot view of me. And I didn't know how long. Lowell, I think you're on mute.
sorry, there you go. Sorry about that. No, you're fine. I was going to allow at least 5 minutes or so for each person, just kind of tell,
Okay,
so
5 minutes. Okay.
yeah. So tell us a little more about what exactly you're doing with the investing. Are you doing rental properties? Are you flipping stuff? I mean, commercial, what exactly are you doing?
So a little bit right now, I'm 2 to 3 years in really on the real estate. So really right now, I've got a lot of insurance clients that maybe want to sell or contacts in that business that may be looking to sell or buy. So we're doing some wholesaling, some of that. I'll purchase a property and do a clean out and just do a quick flip on that purchase. So right now I'm focusing on wholesaling, doing some quick flips, and then buying some assets that make sense to hold. So I do some buy and holds on the commercial and residential side. But I'm kind of growing that slowly for me, just bringing on purchases as they make sense, and then basically wholesaling and flipping the rest of it.
And you have to tell them about your wonderful coffee shop. It's the best coffee shop in Nevada. Well, there you go. So go ahead.
Yeah. So partner Jeremy Fast and I, that one of our brokers came to us a few years ago, and this little coffee shop was wanting to get out of business. And I kind of swore I'd never get into the restaurant industry, but this came available. And so we purchased it and had to move locations with it. And really now we just kind of use it as a hub in the Vernon County area. So we'll do mayor's coffees and chamber coffees and things like that there. So we have a manager, kind of, it's kind of a self-sustaining business that we have in Vernon County.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you guys, it is an awesome building. There's a church there and the coffee shop. It's an absolutely awesome venue. We had our big vision day up there last year. It's the cool building with the exposed beam ceilings and the brick walls. And I mean, it's just a really cool place. So if you're ever in Nevada, stop by and have coffee. And what's it called again?
Precision Coffee Company. And
Precision, yeah.
And I know your group did our first big vision day last year and brought in some great speakers. So that's really why we like to have that coffee shop. Events like that.
Very much a community type of outreach, and it's just awesome. So more towns, I wish they had those. So like that. All right, great. James Like, you're up next.
Hey guys, James Like. I'm married. I have 4 daughters. 4 daughters, yeah. So we'll keep on talking. Name of my company is actually 4 Daughters Holdings on my rental side. And so if you ever see that, you'll know it's the guy from Texas. I do live in Texas, Fort Worth, Texas area. I got my start when I was in high school. I went online, or no, I didn't go online because we didn't have internet. I don't know what I'm talking about. We didn't have internet in the 90s. For me, I was watching an infomercial of a guy named Carlton Sheets. And he was always this old man that had always had a Florida background. Come to find out it was a green screen, which cracks me up because I thought he had some amazing palm trees. But he was getting on the program every night in the evening, and he was talking about buying property with no money down and no money out of pocket, no cash. And so I watched it night after night. I was like a junior in high school, and I was working at a grocery store. And I actually saved my money up and paid $450 at that time and bought that course. Inflation probably makes that course worth about 20 grand now. And so, but I paid $450 for that course and began to start learning. I grew up in a single wide trailer in the countryside. My dad was a steel worker. No one in my family owned any real estate other than the land that their trailer sat on. And so I had no knowledge about real estate, nothing. I just knew that I watched that guy on TV, and man, he could do a whole lot of things with his life by owning real estate. And one of my goals was to be a pastor full-time and to be an investor and be able to pay my own salary so I could do whatever I wanted to and didn't have to listen to other people that had the money to rule me, if that makes sense. I don't know how I thought about all that as a teenager, but that was exactly where the dream was. And then I became a milkman. So I didn't know real estate. I bought the course, I read it, and I started delivering milk for Borden Dairy there in Joplin right after college. By the way, I did take 7 years to do college, and I'm still 7 classes rather shy of a degree. So it doesn't take a degree to do real estate. And there's another gentleman on here, my good buddy Kaleb, who would probably have some things to say about college as well, but we'll save that for another day. I got started full-time in 2006, 17 years ago. Some of you guys weren't even born whenever I got started. And I've done all kinds of things, many that were stupid things to do, like little businesses that I decided to start running that all it did was provide a distraction But overall, I've been a real estate broker for most of those years. And then over the last 4 years, I've flipped over 300 houses in Texas, Florida, Colorado, and actually own quite a few properties in Joplin. And we flipped quite a few properties up there over the last 3 years. And so that's what I'm kind of doing now. We're doing a little bit of flipping. I'm trying to add to my portfolio for passive income. And we may talk a little bit about that today, but I'm looking for rental properties and wanting to add to that so that I can do my mission. And my mission is we go around the world rescuing little girls out of sex trafficking. And I just started doing that about 1.5 years ago. And so we're building a 40-acre ranch down in Costa Rica right now. And I'll have an Airbnb actually on that ranch that we'll live in when we're there and while we're working. And we also bought a house and have a rescue home in the Amazon jungle down in Colombia it's actually in Brazil, but it's on the Colombian, Brazilian, Peru border. It all comes together in 3 places. And so, to be honest with you, real estate is an awesome career. It's been an awesome run. My passion is moving on to rescuing the little girls. I'm 45 years old this year, and I'm looking at the second half of my life and thinking, do I continue pursuing a massive goal of becoming a billionaire, which I have zero desire to do personally. There's other people that would love to do that, and I give them kudos. I'm not there anymore, and so now I'm just trying to get to the point where I can continue building passive income and make it to my goal, which is to live on 20% and give away 80% of my earnings. And so that's what real estate is doing for me. And that's kind of in a nutshell what I do. So I look forward to sharing more with you guys as you have questions. So.
Awesome. Thank you, James.
You bet.
Kaleb, you're up.
I'm Kaleb Marti. I'm out of Jasper, Missouri, just moved to Carthage. I would say, I think it was around when I was 21 years old, I started my first business, which was a auto repair shop and hot rod shop. We built new Camaros, new Corvettes, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, stuff like that. And in a town of 900 people, that's not exactly the most ideal business to start. Wish somebody would have told me that. Luckily, we built that business and had clients from all over the country that came to us. It took me about 10 years to get it built up, but we were doing a couple $1 million a year in revenue out of that. And a pretty large portion of it was profit. So I was able to kind of parlay some of that money into other investments as the business grew. Like we bought I'm trying to think, my first business that I bought was a pizza place in Lamar, Missouri. And kind of like James was saying, I learned really quick that size does matter on businesses. So buying a business that's too small just distracts you, hard to kind of keep up with the day-to-day stuff and make a profit at the same time. There I went on to buy dry cleaners and open car lots and liquor stores, bought a truck stop. And I can't even remember all the businesses I've owned over the last 7 or 8 years, but I kind of realized pretty quick that it wasn't fulfilling what I was wanting out of acquiring things, which was mostly consistent growth and scale. And so I started to take a step back from buying some of those businesses with less than 300,000 or 500,000 a year in EBITDA, or if you're not familiar with EBITDA, it's really a good way of saying profits. But so we tried to just really dial in on what type of business we wanted. And I found it was a lot easier to buy a good profit margin and good net profit and cash flow in real estate easier than it was business. Now this is coming out of 2015, 2018 is whenever I was kind of starting to buy real estate. And so some of that has changed now, where businesses are almost easier to buy than real estate just because interest rates have changed. But I realized very quickly with real estate, I could scale quickly. And that was something that all my other businesses were having trouble with. We were maxing out the amount of volume those businesses could handle without trying to franchise or do some things that I just really wasn't interested in. I started out in single family homes, grew those to about 70 single family homes, and realized that it's really hard to keep track of 70 single family homes scattered out. And so we started looking into commercial retail space, like on Range Line and Joplin. We've got a bunch on 32nd and Main, and started buying some of that retail space. And then I started buying apartments, and apartments was the thing that really kind of reached out and slapped me in the face as far as being able to scale. So we could buy 50 to 100 to 200 units in one closing, and we could park 15, 20 or $30 million into those assets, where we would have to take and buy 15 or 20 traditional businesses. And then you've got all the staff that comes along with those businesses that in any business, staffing is one of the hardest things to kind of keep track of. So after we really discovered the scalability of apartments, that's when I kind of formed our latest company, which is Multifamily Cartel. And it's really just a brand for acquiring assets. We don't operate under it, but if you see big lifted trucks driving around, it's going to have our logos on it. And when we're making offers on properties, it's coming through that Multifamily Cartel brand. Most of that is just for brand recognition, so that when we make an offer, even if another company's got a similar offer, hopefully our agents can tell them that if there's two equal offers there, that they're going to choose ours because we have a reputation of closing property and closing deals efficiently. So now we're holding around 900 apartments that I don't have any partners in. It's just my wife and I on those. And then I've got probably another 60 or 65 apartments with partners, and 500 or 600 storage units. I've been selling off most of my businesses now. I've still got 3 or 4, just bought a golf course and a few fun things like that. But at the moment, I'm kind of like James, just looking to acquire more rental property. So I don't know if that answers everybody's questions so far, or answers the story about me, but I'm interested in hearing what everybody's questions are.
And how old are you? How old are
I
you?
just turned 34.
Yeah. So what everybody see here is there's a lot of different experiences here, and there's a lot of really great information and things that they've experienced and tried and done. So that's something for you guys to look at and be able to answer questions. So Chris, what I'd like to do real quick is just have all the kids just real quick tell their name, where they're from, and then what vein they're doing, or what area that they're planning on going into real quick.
Sure, I'll have them walk up individually since there's a little distance so you can hear them. And
Okay, that's fine.
Emma, go up first. So I'll have them tell you their name, their grade, and kind of their interest, and maybe hopes or dreams if they have that narrowed down. So
Okay, perfect.
Okay, my name's Emma. I'm from Neosho,
okay, go ahead again.
and I want to do commercial real estate.
Everybody hear that okay?
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Hayden? And then Emma, wave when you get back there. If we unmute it, then you're gonna get the feedback, so.
My name is Caden. I go to Neosho High School, and I kind of plan on doing what you guys are kind of doing with wholesaling, which is flipping houses. So
And that, we'll try that. Okay, I'm gonna try something with Natalie where she just.
Hi, my name's Natalie and I am from Neosho. I think I want to do something either in the legal realm or in like HR.
Hi, my name is William. I go by Max. I am a junior at Neosho High School, and I want to do something in the tech world, either IT or security services.
Okay. Ready?
Go for it.
I'm Lainey and I want to do something involved real estate, specifically property management. I'm also a junior.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Julia. I moved from California about 3 years ago, and I am a senior at Neosho High School. And I plan on doing something involving nutrition and dietetics, and my goal in the long run is to be a doctor.
My name is Vivi Medrano. I'm a junior at the Neosho High School, and I'm interested in hopefully opening up a bakery here in town. And I also kind of want to do something in marketing or graphic design. So. Hi, I'm Maria Blancarte, and I'm looking into entrepreneurship and marketing. I'm a junior at the Neosho High School.
Very cool.
Okay, did you guys get all those students?
Got them.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So, I mean, if you want to put a question in the chat, go ahead. But if you want to just take turns and ask questions, the floor is yours to talk to these guys and see what you can find out and learn. So don't be bashful.
So you guys can use the chat. Any questions, we will walk up here, so we don't have to go through all that for each question. So you can, or you can come up here and ask. So some of them are going to go ahead and chat. So I always ask this for entrepreneurs, and I'll kind of kick it off. And for these guys, they all started, you know, they were risk takers early on in life. Can you share some words of wisdom in terms of taking that leap of going for it? Because signing that first loan or putting that first huge dollar investment in can be challenging and scary. What words of advice can you tell these guys that are, you know, kind of on the fence of willing to take that leap?
Well, I'll go ahead and go first. Some of us that are on this call, and I haven't met Chris yet, but I know Kaleb, and some of the risks that we take are pretty sick, and people look at us like we're sick because once you take enough risk, you realize that all the risks that you take, they're calculated. You know, you may sit and you think them well through, but there's this thing called paralysis analysis. It's where you sit down and you analyze something so much that you become paralyzed by it. And I would say that 95% of the people who buy a real estate course probably end up with paralysis analysis. And that's with any business, that's with launching out. I talk to so many people who are working a 9-to-5 job and they hate it. They're in a factory or whatever. They hate it. They want to start a business. They want to do a lot of things, but they sit and they overanalyze things so much that they never take the risk. So my advice here is kind of John Maxwell. He's a real good, awesome leadership guy. And he says, sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. I never look at things as losing. I look at them as learning opportunities. Last year, after all these almost 20 years of doing real estate, I lost $42,000 on a flip house last year. 42 grand. There was years I didn't even make 42 grand. There was years working the milk business. I worked 60 hours a week to make 35 grand, but I lost 42 grand. I'm still smiling. Did it hurt? Yeah, it was painful. But exactly what I said was that was a year's worth of college tuition at a cheap college at $42,000 a year. And so after a while, I think that you learn as an entrepreneur that it takes a whole lot of losses to get some wins. And you just can't be afraid of losing. Like, just take the risk. If you don't take the risk, I mean, we get 75 years on average on this life. If you don't take the risk, especially while you're young, things get more complicated as you go along. So don't be afraid to jump out there, take the risk. Am I going to go skydiving? Absolutely not. Am I going to do some of the other things? Like there's certain risks I'm not willing to take, but I've been broke in my life twice. I don't care if I have to go back to a single wide trailer. Now my wife will be a little upset with me, but I'm not going back there because of the skills that I've learned. But at the same time, I'm not afraid of going broke because I've been there and I've done that. So don't be afraid to take the risk. You can always rebuild, and it doesn't really matter what other people think.
Very good.
I would go along with what James said. I mean, he did a really good job on explaining that, but I think every entrepreneur, when they start out, anybody that's seen any extreme amount of success probably came from a spot of maybe pain or backed into a corner. You know, if I would suggest following James, Chris, and myself on Facebook, as far as following stories on what it really takes to build businesses in the entrepreneur journey. I remember multiple times, and I talk about it on Facebook quite a bit, of my wife and I early on in our business rolling quarters and change just to meet payroll to pay employees at the end of the week, because there was literally more money going out of our business than coming into it. And that can happen a couple different ways. Either the business isn't profitable or it's growing at such a pace that you can't get materials in time before you collect a check on stuff, you know, because your rate of, like in my shop, I was ordering materials for cars that were not completed yet. So I'd complete one and there'd be 2 more sitting there to be worked on. And then we'd complete those 2 and there's 5 more sitting there. Just the growth rate on that can make it very painful to, from a cash standpoint. And all of those things that I learned going through that process now makes it where I feel pretty bulletproof going into a new business or a new entity, because I know that I'm betting on myself more than that business type or maybe the market. You know, you don't necessarily have to be in a good market or in a good business to be profitable or dominate. You just have to be in that top percentage of entrepreneurs. And most of that comes from how much you invest into yourself, how much work you're willing to put into it, and probably just how relentless you are to see the project through. And I think that's what has got most of us on this call where we are today, is just that relentless pursuit on whatever we start.
Very good.
Yeah, just like James and Kaleb said, spot on. And it's taking that first step. So like, I don't know, what's a big risk for me, you know, may not be a big risk for someone else, but identifying that for this point in time, this is a big risk for me. And then calculating, like James was saying, you know, we calculate our risk, but sometimes we just bet on ourselves and we know that we're going to make it happen. So yeah, I'm going to take losses, you know, there's going to be some losses that we take on, but at the same time, I'm going to learn from those and use those as a learning experience. So as you get into taking more risk and taking on more things, you can probably take a little bit more loss. Like James was saying with his, I think he lost $42,000 on a property. But you know, okay, what's my next deal? What's that look like? And I'm gonna make it up there. So it's kind of starting where you are and then being able to take on more risk.
Very good. Well, we've got some great questions coming up here on the chat, so I don't know if everybody can see them or not, but sorry, go back up there. So Julia asked, when you buy a rental property that you're planning on flipping, what's the first thing you think about and what are the first steps in that process?
I'll let James or Chris take this one. I don't really flip much, but
Okay.
Yeah, I answered in the chat there, but
Oh, okay.
to me, on buying the flips, like you make the money when you buy it. And so you got to figure out, is the value, before I even drive out and look at the neighborhood, like, because of the fact that I study neighborhoods so much, like Joplin, I can tell you forward and backwards, everything about Joplin. Neosho, I haven't been down there as much. I've made some offers on properties, but I don't own anything there right now. But I just got back from Joplin yesterday, and I know as soon as someone sends me, 609 North Pearl, it's one I have under contract. It's an ugly house. But I know that once I get past the 300 block of North Pearl, I'm in a decent rental area. And so I know it because I've studied the market. And so for me, the very first thing is when someone sends me an address, I want to be able to say, is that a neighborhood where I can make a good rental property out of it, have, get some good desirable tenants, have a safe place for, people to be able to go and rent to so that I can maximize my profit. But Chris actually had the better answer. I just tried to come up with one since he was first. And so he can share that with you.
Yeah. So for me, it's location and knowing that location and then what my after repair value is. And if it's not for me, say I'm not going to take on the project, but I want to make sure that whoever's buying it from me can have success with that project. So, what's the after repair value? What are we going to sell it for? And offer a buyer a good product at a good rate.
So I don't know a whole lot about it other than what I did. I helped James there for a while, look for some houses to buy. And one of the things that just kind of blew me away, but, he's got a formula of, hey, you're going to see a house. I mean, it's got to fit this formula in order for it to really work. And if it doesn't, then he doesn't really want to look at it. So, because like he said, if you can't make the money up front, then it's not worth pursuing. So, there were several of them that we ended up closing on, which that was kind of cool. And now, I drive by there and I see this house that's been completely redone and someone's living it. It's really kind of a cool process, but that was pretty neat. So, there was a good question there. And Kaleb will let you answer this one, but how in the world do you keep track of all those properties?
It gets harder as time goes on in scale. Now I may have talked to James one time about this, but the city actually tore down one of my houses because I forgot to put it on my list. And so several months went by, they had pulled the meter out of it. I'd bought a package of houses, and honestly, you probably shouldn't shop for houses whenever you're not in town. And I think I was sitting in Arizona or Las Vegas doing something. Agreed to buy a house, wired some funds, had somebody else close it for me, and just forgot the house existed. And about 6-8 months later, went through the demo hearing, and they weren't sending me the notices. And I drove by it one day because I remembered that I had it. It's like, oh, I need to drive by and check on it. I went by and it's just a vacant lot with a $10,000 lien on it from the city tearing it down. So kind of figured out at that point I didn't want houses anymore. But now then we use several different softwares to track it because it's very difficult to track when people are moving out and the exact day they're moving out, then what crews need to be in there, whether it be a make-ready guy, remodeler, cleaning person, inspector, whatever it may be. There's really not a system out there that is robust enough to handle all of the things we need. So we're actually in the middle of building out our own software in-house right now, just to kind of handle some of that organization and being able to make sure we don't lose any properties, in the mix of all the hecticness of closing these things.
Very cool. Okay. So Lainey says, can you share some employee struggles and what you look for in an employee?
I don't like people. I don't like employees. But you got to have people and you got to have employees.
Yeah.
And so I think the and I love people, by the way, but I'm just trying to be funny. But here's the thing: like, be consistent, do what you say you're going to do, have integrity, show up on time. None of those can be deciphered when you sit in a face-to-face interview across from somebody when you hire them for the job. Unfortunately, you have to find those things out, sometimes months after they start working for you. Because during an interview, everybody gives everything to you, like gives you their best. And sometimes we tend to fudge on our interviews and make ourselves sound a lot better than what we really are, or say that we have skills that we don't really have. And until they get in the fire and have to put those skills that they said they have to use, you have no clue. You just have to kind of go by gut feeling and experience to be able to, to figure some things out. And so especially entry level positions. But for me, like if you show up and you got your hoodie thrown over your head and it looks like you had a hard night partying all night or whatever, and you show up to the interview and you've got dandruff flaking off your hair and it's all oily because you hadn't taken a bath in 3 days, like that's automatic. Like you're not going to come to work for me. So there's little tangible things like that where you can show up and be your best. But as far as employees go, Kaleb is a great employer. And so he can speak to this a lot better than I can. I'm not as nice as him.
Not as nice. Hey, that's the nicest thing I've heard. So employees are a challenge, like with every business, obviously. And at one time I had, I think 85 to 90 employees.
Whoa.
And my goal was to reach that 250 to 300 employee size. And I started realizing pretty quick that just managing people was not necessarily my skill set. But I did develop a few like non-negotiable things that I wanted in key personnel and really even just basic employees. And that one is really just loyalty to me and the company. Like, are they going to put the company and myself before somebody else or themselves? Now, that doesn't mean no personal life, but in an instance where they've got to make a decision that affects the company, I need to know that they're making that decision based on the company's needs, because if the company's needs are met, then employees' needs are met whenever it's profitable. And that is a very rare trait in people. Typically with employees, we just sit back and watch how they interact with their credit cards, their materials or something that they have on a job site, their maintenance vehicles or company vehicles. And you can see the ones that put care into those things and don't want to take from the company. Then you see the ones that any chance they get, they take $1, if that makes sense. And from what, this is how our company operates, but the ones that are really trying to give the most are the ones that are going to make the most. The ones that are trying to take the most will probably never really grow outside of where they're at, because I don't want to put them in a position of power where they're training other people for it to be okay to take more than what they've earned. And a saying that I really like that has been kind of vital to me is that the man who does more than he is paid will eventually be paid more than he does. And that's a really good example for a few of the really top people in my organization, is they put in the time and the effort to prove to me where their loyalty kind of sits. And so now then it's fun as an employer to get back and pay them for that loyalty that they've put in, if that makes sense.
Good.
So for me, I look for high ethics. So like on the insurance side of things, you have to be really highly ethical to manage clients and their portfolios and whatever we have written for them. But so it's really ethical right out of the gate. And then having passion. So they got to have passion for life and what they're doing, and then being coachable. So a lot of times, if you're coachable, like we just hired an employee recently that doesn't have a lot of experience in the business world, but it's extremely coachable. And so we're able to talk through calls and sales calls and things like that. And that employee's open to the feedback. So yeah, really having passion and being coachable for me is what we're looking for. I love people that give back to the community. So like if I have an employee our goal is to plug them in to wherever their passion is. And that's with giving back as well. So it's not necessarily where I want them to give back, but where do they enjoy giving back? And I want to make sure they're plugged into the community. So for me, those things, having to hire and fire a lot of employees over the years in my W-2 role, there were some things I couldn't control there that I can in my own businesses. And so I really look for the coachable and the person with passion.
Very cool. Max had a question. He said, Mr. Like, he says, what states do you have broker's license in? And do you have connections in different real estate offices in those areas that you buy properties in?
Yeah, I'm just licensed in Texas. I failed the Missouri test during right before COVID, and I never did go back and take it again. I probably should have read the books and studied, but I didn't. I tried to do it straight up just because I was limited on time. But anyways, so there's a good failure for you. But I just have the license in Texas. The cool thing about what we do is, although some people might argue it's good to have a license or it's bad to have a license because you have to disclose things or whatever, I think that having a license everywhere I go would be great, because it helps me not only save on commission, but it gives me direct access to the multiple listing services everywhere, so that I can run my own numbers and not depend on another person, another real estate agent. And especially like what Kaleb was just talking about, representing their own interest in the deal. It's that trust factor again when I'm throwing it out. And so someone also asked Lowell about the time to get a license. If you're a pretty fast learner, you can go online and have a real estate license within 3 to 4 months in Missouri and in Texas. And so it doesn't take much to get a license, and you can look around at the licensed agents in your area and figure out that it really doesn't take much to get a license. That was the slam, and I apologize. I just roasted some people on that one, but some of them are pretty lacking in knowledge, but you can just get it so quickly. What was the second question, Lowell? From Max that you were asking?
Sorry.
I might have answered.
Do you have connections to different real estate offices in the different areas that you buy property in?
Absolutely. And here's the thing, no matter what career you chose, and I heard every single person had a different career path that they were looking at. Number one thing is network. Your network of people equals your net worth. And it's all about who you know. You've heard that probably your whole life. It's all about who you know. And so the very first thing I do, like when I go into Tampa, Florida, I have 4 different real estate agents in Tampa that I can call right now. And matter of fact, when Kaleb and I actually went to Tampa here a couple of years ago to watch the sorry Dallas Cowboys play, and I went 2 days earlier because I had meetings with different real estate agents in the area that I didn't even know. I just made the connection, because the more people you know, oh man, I'm about to go Grant Cardone here, but Grant Cardone says, if they don't know you, they can't flow you. So if you don't have cash flow, I mean, if you want cash flow, you got to know some people, and it's the people is where the value's at. That's why I said earlier, I don't really like people, but that's not the truth. I was just being funny, but the network is the biggest thing. And so, yes, everywhere I go, Colorado, Texas, Joplin, I have 5 different realtors in Joplin that I ate lunch with the last 2, well, not lunch, but that I spent time with the last 2 days that I was up in Joplin. And so that network is huge. I'm sure Chris agrees too.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And that's one thing that going in 17, I didn't realize, being in the corporate world, is how hard you have to network. And I enjoy it now, but I didn't realize the value of that back in 2017 that I understand today. So yeah, networking is where you have to network, and you have to do it every day.
So all this has kind of been asked before or talked about a little bit, but fear is natural, Julia says, but her question is in the beginning there, how do you overcome that fear, jumping into these big deals? Or, Chris, like you had a corporate job and a good paycheck and all that, and then all of a sudden you quit your job and buy an insurance agency. I mean, there had to be some fear involved there.
Yeah. And I think I sat on it for so many years, and I got to thinking, like, where am I going to end up? Because I have some passions and things that I want to accomplish in my life. And I'd go another year and get another promotion and be like, oh, okay, well, that wasn't fulfilling for me. And so at one point in time, I go, I've got to do it or like stay here. And it got to the point where I'm just going to jump and basically bet on me. And so, you know, we're all in a different spot in life potentially. You know, I had 2 girls, an ex, you know, I have child support to pay, things like that. It's like, okay, I got to make it work somehow. And so, you know, at some point you have to take that leap and believe in yourself. And I know that I see so many people that don't fully believe in themselves. And that's, you know, of course, you know, we go back to networking, we try our best to help those people, but sometimes they just don't believe fully in themselves. And you really have to bet on you sometimes and just take that risk and go for it.
Very good.
Now, fear is false evidence appearing real.
Right.
False evidence appearing real. That's what fear means. So you can only run the scenarios through your head a certain amount of times. Get comfortable with the worst thing that could happen and just jump.
Love it.
Yeah, I would say something just to add to that is fear is kind of like a muscle. Like if you're not constantly pushing yourself to where you're stretching, you know, and making it, because the things that are scary to me now, or that was scary to me in the beginning, isn't scary to me now. You know, I used to overanalyze every single deal. Every house that I bought, I'd analyze it just down to the penny. And just last month, we bought 300 apartments and I never entered one of them, didn't even see it, but I could see it off the rent roll and know based off of past experiences and what we could remodel stuff at, that as long as I bought it at this portion, it wasn't worth as much of my time invested into the due diligence side, where early on I could never take that on because of the fear of what if this happened, what if that happened. But it's just consistently pushing yourself and putting yourself in a spot of fear, because you'll also find that the guys that have no fear aren't growing. Like, you know, if they're just in that comfort zone, they're probably just never going to push out of it. And so if you want to grow, you have to be in that spot of fear.
Good. So Emma asked that when you first start, is that first 6 months the hardest time? Would you consider having a second job? But also she says for commercial real estate, would you consider becoming a builder's real estate agent? I think that most of you kind of talked about, you had other things going on. You didn't just jump into real estate without having some other source of income. So
I didn't. I just quit. I just walked in at the end of the school year, took my milk crates and said, I'm done. I had no money in the bank. I had no closings on the table. My back was up against the wall. Don't recommend it. My recommendation is that you save up at least 6 months worth of income before you go full time. But what's amazing about real estate and real estate investing, I heard someone say they wanted to be a doctor. And I think that's amazing. Yeah, there she is. And a nutritionist or whatever. You know how many doctors that I know that are investing in real estate? Like a bunch. Like real estate is one of those things that you can either go full time and make a career out of it, and eventually start doing what I'm doing, which is switching over to where my philanthropy work, my nonprofit stuff is actually going to take over my life, and real estate will become a kind of a side gig for me, if you will. You can do that, or you can have a job and you can do real estate on the side until you build it up. It's just whatever works for you and your family. But I'm going to tell you guys something. Like, if I could go back to the 21-year-old James, I got married at 21 and to my first wife. If I could go back at the 21-year-old James, I would have went straight into real estate. I already knew what to do. I'd already been reading about it. I'd already been learning about it. I already had mentors, and I ended up going a little bit of a different route, but I would have learned it all then. And then if I wanted to try to be a doctor, or I wanted to go be a lawyer or whatever, I would have been that college guy rolling up with that, with a Lamborghini to my classes that are all being paid for by cash because of the fact that, that I have real estate. And so real estate is one of those things that you can learn, and it can go with you for the rest of your life, and you don't have to even do it full time. But if you want to go full time, I say you hold back 6 months, at minimum 6 months worth, and you never get comfortable. The biggest fear that I have, guys, is getting so comfortable that 3 or 4 months in, I'm losing so slow that I think I'm winning, or I should say I'm winning so slow that I'm losing. And so I don't ever want to get into that situation. And so 6 months worth would be good.
Good. Does anybody want to address that question from Caden about in the process of buying your first property, how do you handle the finances of starting? But then Maria also says, how do you know when the right time to start flipping houses is or buying properties, and to depend on what's going on in the market? So they kind of go together a little bit.
James, I think you'd be good at buying the first property.
All right. Well, I mean, Lowell would have to set up another webinar that could probably last 4 hours on how to buy the first property. There's, I'm sure there's some cat lovers on here, but in Texas we say there's so many ways to skin a cat, and so you can definitely go ahead, and if you have family members, you can borrow cash. If you have a credit, you can go down to the bank. If you don't have credit, you can go down to the bank. If you find an incredible deal, I'm sorry, I can't answer the question. We'll be on here all day, but I'm gonna tell you one thing. If you find an incredible deal that has plenty of equity, the cash, everybody thinks that's the hardest part, but it's not. Cash is one of the easiest things. You find a deal that has a ton of equity, the money will follow. People will be banging down your door to give you cash for it. So finding money's never been an issue for me. Finding the deals has always been the issue. And so that most people don't realize that, but Kaleb can speak to that as well, because even on apartments, like you're getting into the millions and millions, and my mindset hasn't changed enough. So I'm the silly guy that's over here buying one house at a time, worried if the city's going to tear it down. Kaleb's over here buying thousands of apartment units and stuff. And we're literally doing the same amount of work. It's just, he's 10Xing where I'm spending 200 grand. He's spending 2 million. And it's the same thing, just on a different scale. But he can go buy a whole apartment complex. If he brings an amazing deal, if it's $100 million for the apartment complex, but it's an amazing deal with tons of equity, he will find the money. I promise you, he will find the money.
Yep.
So Chris, do you want to hit that other part, since you're doing more of the flipping and stuff right now that you're talking about? Is how do you know when's the right time to start flipping houses, and what's going on with the market that way? So
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I would just say now. So, start looking at deals now, start getting comfortable with deals now. And here's the thing, the cool thing about real estate is, I mean, you want to vet your partners, right? You want to make sure you're investing with good people, but you can start sharing that with the three of us that came on today. Like, is this a good deal? Does this look like a solid buy? So James hit on it too. The money, you'll find the money if you find the deal. And that's so true. So I would start looking at property now. What's your interest? What are you interested in? What market areas? Start looking at it now and start sharing those ideas with other investors that maybe are a little more seasoned. So, I mean, for me, when we get off this call, I'm going to go look at buying some property. I know that interest rates may be up and the economy may be questionable, but we're still looking at deals today. So I would say right now.
Awesome. Okay, well, we're running out of time, or getting close. So what I'd like to do is just have you three real estate guys just kind of give us the last final words for these guys and words of encouragement, and we'll go from there. You want to start, Kaleb?
Yeah, so something I usually tell people, that no matter what industry you're going into, whether it be to be a doctor or I know some of you were talking about commercial real estate or real estate sales, whatever it may be, I think that every person should buy and own real estate. I'm saying buy and hold it. And I don't care if you're a doctor that makes $1 million a year, that will not retire you as fast as owning real estate will. So do both. I'm not saying not to be a doctor. I'm not saying not to sell real estate. I'm saying just buy and acquire it, hold it forever, and you'll be able to pass on lifetime generational wealth to children, your family, whatever it may be. And then you can do whatever your passion is. Like James is talking about, he's wanting to switch over to mission work. He can do that because the real estate, his passive real estate, will pay for that. And so if you're looking at this, you're 20 years old right now and looking at buying real estate, by the time you're my age, if you bought 10 houses, you'll easily be worth over $1 million just from that income and growth of those over that time period. You'll be amazed at what kind of wealth you'll build just by being able to leverage all those houses whenever you need to. So just start buying now, regardless of what you do.
Chris?
Yeah. So I think for me, it's just, it's don't quit. So whatever that passion that drives you every morning when you get up, whatever that is, it may be different for everyone on the Zoom call, but whatever that is, don't give up, because what I see is a lot of people, they'll give up on that dream. They'll give up on that passion, and they stop way too soon. I see it every week. Someone's given up on something. They didn't show up. So I kind of a thing for me, I show up every day, and it may be a bad day. It may be a crappy week, but I still show up. So it's really show back up the next day and don't quit.
Very good.
Were there any seniors in the class, or are y'all juniors? Senior? Okay. Are you ready for school to be done? Senioritis is kicking in probably in March here. Here's the thing. When you're a junior and you're a senior in high school, you're like, man, I can't wait to get out of here, and I'm never doing school ever again. And my advice would say, don't ever have that attitude. One of the first things that people ask me, I had a guy on my team ask me the other day, James, what else can I do to find more properties? I'm trying to find more properties. What else can I do? And I keep telling him the same thing over and over. Be a student. Always be learning. And the best advice that any of us could give you is to always be learning. Whenever you leave out of here, no matter what trade that you decide to go down, no matter what career you decide to pick, no matter if real estate's going to be full-time or real estate's going to be part-time, or you're never going to do it, just always be a student of whatever craft it is that you feel like you're passionate about. In this internet age, with YouTube videos and all of the different things, Zoom calls and webinars, and I mean, there's just a plethora of things that you can go and you can learn from. Podcasts. I listen to 2 to 3 podcasts every single day. I watch 2 to 3 YouTube videos every single day. And I've been doing this stuff for over 20 years, and I learn something new every single day. I'm always tweaking and working on the mindset, figuring out how can I be a better person? How can I bring more knowledge to the field? And so don't ever get complacent. Don't ever get complacent with learning. Always strive to be a learner. If you'll do that, and you'll always have that curiosity inside of you, guys, you will go to the very top of any field that you put yourself into if you'll just be that student, including with real estate and whatever else you touch your hand to. So thank you guys for allowing us to come on and talk with you. And hopefully we got some of your questions answered there. I'll try to go back on the chat here when we're done, if it'll let me, and answer a few more. But if you guys want to, Kaleb mentioned earlier, and I think this would be good. We're always spitting out positivity on our social media pages. And so if you want to go to Facebook and look up James Like, that is my last name, by the way, Like. And then on Instagram, I'm at the James Like, THE James Like. And if you follow me, usually I have some good stuff going on there and some pretty stupid stuff like falling out of a chair and getting laughed at by my friends. But whatever, you guys follow us. If you ever have any questions, private message, be glad to answer anything. And then if you need a job, call Chris or Kaleb, because they're right there in your area, and they'll put you to work. Kaleb's got some sewer pipes that need to be dug up, I'm sure. So he'll put you right on to work.
All right. Well, awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us today, and I hope this has been helpful. Now, before we end, if you guys want to go to the chat, save your chat, and that way you can see that. But if you don't save it, it'll be gone.
Okay.
Awesome. Lowell, I just want to say thank
Yes.
you to the panel and thank you for organizing this.
No.
It makes me want to run out and like shop deals and find investors. And even at my age, and I'm old, I'm a lot older than these guys, to go for it even now, because your words are things that's been echoed by other business leaders and by other entrepreneurs. And of course, it's a passion of ours and things in CAPS program to teach those things as well for entrepreneurship. And but very motivational, very informational. And I know for our real estate people, I know they're going to start looking up MLS listings and things. I'm sure of it. But we appreciate the fact that you're willing to let our students reach out to you. And I'm sure you'll be seeing some connections coming soon.
Yeah. So as I say, encourage you
Yeah,
guys
thanks.
all to connect with these guys on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, because they do have a lot of good stuff, content that they're putting out. So, all right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.